أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولو تقول علينا بعض الأقاويل لأخذنا منه باليمين ثم لقطعنا منه الوتين فما منكم من أحد عنه حاجزين.
So let's proceed to the next question. This question has come from another country, namely America. So he's asking about your proofs and about your claims as the Khalifatullah and Reviver of faith. He would be really happy if you can give him a reply on this subject, because he's a seeker of truth about your proof and your claims.
Jazakallah. Okay, Jazakallah. And I will try to explain about this many times in my sermons, in my speech, even in my proclamation. If you go to the website, you will find this. So even that I will try to give very briefly, and then you can go through the website. We have our website and also the blogs of the Jamaat Sahih al-Islams. So to reply your question, it is a perfect teaching of no doubt, a strong proof of the truth of a prophet. But all men do not possess the intelligent requisites to appreciate the beauties of a perfect teaching, and it is therefore necessary that proofs should be forthcoming, by the help of which a man of average intelligence may be able to judge of this truth. So all the proofs by which the truth of previous prophet was established, and that I worked all those miracles that had been worked by the previous prophet. The greatest proof of the truth of a prophet is a perfect purifier of his own life. The life of a prophet exhibits such a uniform purity and righteousness that all those who have opportunities of observing it are convinced of the truth. I do not mean merely that people do not become aware of their fault. For there must be hundreds of thousands of men against whom no evil can be proved. But I mean such righteousness as is testified to by men, and on the basis of which it can be confidently asserted not only that man has not been guilty of any evil, but that no evil could possibly be expected from him. As a proof of his truth, you are from America, I can understand that you are from Christian faith. So has a proof of his truth, that is Jesus, peace be upon him, says, "Which are you convinced me of sins? And if I say the truth, why do you not believe me?" This is found in John chapter 8 verses 46. By this he did not mean merely that no falsehood could be proved against him, but that they were aware that his life had been such that he could not possibly utter that which was not true. And he asked them, why, having such knowledge, they did not accept that which he told them concerning God. For a man who has never been guilty of a falsehood concerning man could not dare to invent a falsehood concerning God. The same claim made by the Holy Prophet of Islam, the founder of Islam, the Holy Prophet, on whom be peace and the blessings of God. The Holy Quran says, "I have passed a considerable portion of my life amongst you, yet you do not desist from calling me an impostor." That is to say, every act and every honor of my life has been before your eyes, and you know that I have ever held to the truth, and that it is impossible for me to utter a falsehood. Then how can you charge me with an imposture? This is a clear and more emphatic claim than that of Jesus, and also for me in this era. It is challenge the enemies in similar words. God debate, that is announced to the enemies that the prophets or the reviver of faith, the Khalifatullah, he spent the whole of his life before their eyes. Then why did they do not desist from calling the prophets, the reviver of faith, or the Khalifatullah, the Messiah, even the Holy Prophet, an impostor? And then by way of admonition, can say, how is it that these men behold you and yet have no eyes to see? That is to say, things are wonderful, purity. That is to say, things are wonderful, purity of life of prophets, of someone who claims. How can they doubt a prophet's claim? How they can doubt? So, personally for me, I can tell you that as a Khalifatullah, a reviver of faith, I issue a challenge to my enemies in accordance to the revelation which I received. But nobody come forward to take it up. and the bitterest enemies confess that whole life was a uniform record of purity and righteousness. So, the believer, one who believes in verbal revelation, the prophet, one who believes in a prophet, was a believer in a verbal revelation and claimed that God spoke to him in words. Because when a prophet is coming, there's a Rohil Qudus, it's a divine revelation. That is, believe in verbal revelation and claim that God spoke to anyone who Allah chooses. Even in this era, Allah has raised His humble self and spoke to this humble self in words. Had my claimed merely to be inspired, there would have been room for the suggestion that people can say was mistaken in his claim, or in my claim, or in any prophet's claim. However, a prophet claims to be recipient of verbal revelation, the only alternative to the truth of the prophet claims was that he was either a deliberate impostor or a madman. Like, I tell you frankly, in this era, some has said that I am a madman, crazy man, an impostor. It is like this. Any prophet who comes from Allah, they get this kind of title from other disbelievers who don't want to believe, the enemies of the prophets. But the whole of the lives of a prophet furnishes an conclusive refutation of either of a latter hypothesis, and we are therefore forced to be conclusion that the claims of a prophet was perfectly true. Another very strong proof of the truth of the claims of a prophet, of a reviver of faith, of the Khalifatullah, is that all revealed books are agreed that an impostor is not permitted to flourish. Let us see in the Bible first. The Bible says, "But the prophet which shall presume to speak words in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or that shall speak in the name of other gods, even that prophet shall die." Deuteronomy chapter 18 verses 20. Again, therefore, thus said the Lord concerning the prophets that prophesy in my name, and I send them not, yet they say, sword and famine shall not be in this land. By sword and famine shall those prophets be consumed. Jeremiah, it is chapter 14, I think, if I don't forget, chapter 14 verses 15. And again it is written where and said that, and it shall come to pass that when any shall yet prophesy, then his father and his mother that begat him shall say unto him, thou shalt not live, for thou speakest lies in the name of the Lord. Zechariah chapter 13 verses 3. Similarly, the Holy Quran now says that if he had attributed to us some of his own words, which we had not spoken to him, we would have caught him by the right arm and cut off his carotid artery. So these verses show that if a man invents saying and then gives them out to the world as revelation from God, he is not allowed to flourish and is cut off before his movement can obtain a strong foothold in the world. So by applying this test to my claim, we are convinced of my truth. People can convince with my truth. For the first claimed to have received revelation, the first claim, when I have received the revelation at the age of 40 and lived, that is up to now, and all my revelation, proclamation, my claim has been put in publication. So by the grace of God, our Jamaat Sahih al-Islam, flourishing and lived out the normal span of life, and his death occurred in accordance with my own prophecies, which I have already spoken and published beforehand, and in which I have been informed that there will be many things will happen. If you listen to my khutbahs and my speech, you will see how many things I have already said. So my dear brothers, even dear brothers, sisters who listen to me, it is convincible that a living God should permit a man deliberately to invent saying and to ascribe them to God as revelation received by him for publication among mankind, and thus to lead his creatures astray and checked and with impunity. If this were so, what security could there be for faith, and what protection would there be for the righteousness? It may be that a man who is himself laboring under a misconception, for instance, a madman, or one who regards revelation as a mere inspiration and convinced his own ideas to be inspired, is to a certain extent excusable and does not deserve a severe chastisement. But when a man claims to be the recipient of verbal revelation, he must if his claim is not true, be either a madman or a deliberate impostor. If therefore it is established in the case of any such claimant that he is not a madman, on the other hand, he survives his claim for a long period of time during which he accomplishes his mission, we must accept him as a righteous man and as a messenger of God. Again, in support of the truth of a man who proclaims he is a man of God, a prophet from God, may be cited those wonderful signs which God causes to be revealed at his hands in the same manner as they used to be revealed at the hands of the prophets of old. These signs number hundreds of thousands, but I shall cite here a few by way of illustration, which do not stand in need of any external evidence. The first instance I take is his literary miracle, which not only testified to the truth of his claim while he was alive, but would ever remain a strong proof of the truth of his claim. So, also when God raised a prophet, the world will not accept him and will oppose him. But God will support him and will establish his truth by mighty signs. The time is near when God will help you and cause thy name to be known and honored among men. Thou art not the founder, that is, the founder of my Jamaat, my community. God himself is a founder. Since the truth has arrived and all things that contend against it will be vanquished, for falsehood cannot withstand truth. It is God who has sent his messenger with guidance and has equipped him with Islamic philosophy so that he should establish the victory of Islam over other religions. For that reason, in this era, there is the Jamaat al-Sahih al-Islam, who will revive the true Islam. God has decreed that he and his messenger must always prevail. His messenger and followers of the latter, although accounted weak or lowly in the world, shall in the end prevail, inshallah. So I think that you have understand. I make it very briefly, and inshallah, if Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, God wills, give me another chance, I will reply on this against and against, inshallah ta'ala al-aziz. Jazakallah for your question, and inshallah Allah will bless you.